What happened on Saltwell Hill is brought to you by Rapid Answers. On the 7th of January 1949, Tommy Vandiver and his new wife, Beatrice, were seen walking up Saltwell Hill toward the home they were living in at the time. This was the last anyone ever saw of Roy, Beatrice, or her 17-year-old daughter, Wanda. What happened to the family of three remains a mystery even now, over 70 years later. In this podcast, we will explore the events surrounding this story, the people involved, and what the families, community, and public opinion believes happened on Saltwell Hill. Greetings, I'm Roger Hunter, your host and storyteller. Welcome back to What Happened on Saltwell Hill, and thank you for joining us for episode 3. I apologize this episode is a little bit late, but I hope it's worth the wait. Today I have a special tale to share with you. And while some of you may have your suspicions, I assure you there are still surprises waiting to be uncovered. So, let's dive into what happened on Saltwell Hill. If you were listening through the post-episode teaser at the conclusion of episode 2, you must be curious about the identity of William Colgate and his role in our narrative. Consequently, I've decided to retitle episode 3 as Who is William Colgate? In this episode, we'll resume our story from where we left off in episode 2 on Friday, January 7th, 1949, with Nellie Hughes witnessing Tommy and Beatrice ascending Saltwell Hill, marking the last time they were ever seen. It's worth noting that there's no mention of Bill Messmore's car being present at the base of Saltwell Hill anywhere during that time. On Saturday, January 8th, Bill Messmore made his way from Louisville to the farm. His routine was familiar. He parked his car at the base of Saltwell Hill, then trekked the half-mile uphill to reach his farm. It remains uncertain how much time he spent at the home before descending Saltwell Hill once more, heading over to the Hughes home. There he discovered Emil Hughes busy at work in the yard and inquired whether he had spotted the Vandivers or had any inkling of their whereabouts. Unfortunately, Hughes had no information to offer. After this encounter, Messmore retraced his steps back to the top of Saltwell Hill. Later that afternoon, he left again. On Sunday, a gathering of concerned citizens assembled with the intention of visiting the Messmore farm to investigate the whereabouts of Tommy, Beatrice, and Wanda. In some accounts, this assembly is described more like a mob. Unfortunately, or maybe fortunately for him, Bill Messmore was not home at the time. The group wandered about, peering through windows and exploring the property, including the base of the cliffs that encircled the land. During their inspection, they reported spotting what appeared to be blood and a bullet hole in one of the window frames. Their discovery prompted them to notify the sheriff, Marcus Lane. On Monday, Sheriff Lane secured a warrant and proceeded to the property. Once more, no one was present, and Lane did not exhibit significant concern regarding his findings. The sole disconcerting discovery was the unearthing of a body in the backyard. However, upon closer examination, it became evident that the body belonged to a coon dog, and it appeared to have been shot and subsequently buried in a shallow grave behind the house. On Wednesday morning, the 12th, Messmore's car was again parked at the base of Saltwell Hill. Later in the day, Nellie Hughes reported that she observed Bill approaching their front porch. She had seen him descending Saltwell Hill with a shotgun in one hand, swinging it as he made his way toward her residence. In a vexed tone, he inquired, "Did they go in my house?" Although he did not specify who they were, Nellie confirmed that indeed someone had entered his home. Bill angrily stormed back up the hill, and shortly thereafter he returned to his car and departed. He drove to English, and headed to the courthouse, where he inquired with the clerk about whether the sheriff had visited his house. Not long after that, Sheriff Lang arrived with a copy of the warrant. Sheriff Lang had already alerted the state police headquarters in Jasper, prompting them to dispatch Detective Wendell Opal to meet with Lang in English. Collaboratively, they conducted an inquest of Messmore, seeking information about his knowledge of the missing family and the whereabouts as of late of himself. Messmore explained that he had been working in Louisville, and when he returned home on the 8th, the Vandivers were no longer at his property. He mentioned that the potbelly stove had been relocated to a barn on the Vandiver farm. Inquiring further, they asked him why the Vandivers had left all their clothing in the room they had occupied. Messmore clarified that those items were donated from neighbors after the Vandivers' home burned down, and they likely didn't want to keep them. The conversation then extended to the matter of the dog, and Messmore explained that he had shot it because, well, it wouldn't stop howling. Messmore asserted that he had paid Vandiver $300 for his land after the house fire, but never received a title or a deed. Once they concluded their questioning, Messmore informed them of his impending return to Louisville for work, and since they had no grounds to detain him, they allowed him to leave. Following the interview, Detective Opal made contact with the Kentucky State Police to conduct a background check on Mr. Bill Messmore. Are you prepared for life's unexpected twists and turns? At Rapid Answers Life Insurance, we understand that life is full of uncertainties. That's why we're here to offer you peace of mind and financial security with our comprehensive life insurance plans. With Rapid Answers, you can secure instant coverage and get peace of mind in minutes. Our streamlined online process ensures you're covered without the hassles of lengthy paperwork and waiting periods. Say goodbye to doctor visits and needles because our policies require no medical exams, making it easier than ever to get covered. Don't wait for tomorrow to secure your family's future. Act now because life is precious and your loved ones deserve the best protection. Rapid Answers Life Insurance, where your questions are answered and your future is secure. Go to www.rapidanswers.life. That's www.rapidanswers.life. William Desi Messmore came into this world on December 16, 1916, in Christian County, Kentucky. His parents were Doshie Downs and James Messmore. He grew up with one brother, one sister, and two half-sisters. The details of his early life are somewhat hazy. According to the 1920 census, James Messmore, his father, is recorded to have married another woman in Henderson County, Kentucky. It seems that Doshie, perhaps along with William and his brother James, relocated to the Louisville area. While some reports categorize James as a half-brother, the family dynamics during those years remain somewhat unclear. William started his public school journey at the age of 6, enrolling at the East Market Street School in Louisville. His mother, in an extraordinary effort to provide their family, would scour the city dump for items they could use to sustain themselves. In fact, she constructed a small dwelling entirely from discarded materials she had salvaged from the dump, situated it on an empty lot along River Road, and it was within these humble surroundings that William spent his formative years. Doshie became friends with a man named Henry Colgate that she met at the dump. Henry's livelihood involved gathering discarded vegetables, cleaning them, and selling them from his vegetable wagon. Eventually, Doshie married Colgate, and her sons adopted his last name. William's earliest occupation was assisting in collecting items from the dump for the vegetable wagon, all while attending school until around the 5th grade. However, at age 13, His actions labeled him as a juvenile delinquent, leading to his placement in the Ormsby Village. Ormsby Village, established in 1912, represented a new era in child care, distinguishing itself from the orphanages of the late 1800s and early 1900s, which often resembled work farms more than care facilities. Situated in a remote countryside location outside of Louisville, Ormsby Village aimed to provide a unique home environment. The primary emphasis here was on education and development of social skills. During the economic hardships of the 1920s, the village experienced a rapid increase in its population. Additionally, it became a placement center for minor juvenile delinquents. By 1930, when William arrived at Ormsby Village, it was home to more than 400 children. William completed his sixth grade education while residing at the village and subsequently found employment with Llewellyn and Louisville Laundry upon leaving. On October 3, 1932, an 18-year-old boy named Buck Wellington was apprehended in Louisville, Kentucky on charges of malicious assault. However, it was soon revealed that Buck Wellington was, in fact, a 15-year-old boy named William Colgate. With these charges pending, he found himself in trouble again in January 1933, this time for the possession of a firearm. These new charges led to his incarceration at the Greendale Reformatory. Situated on the countryside near Lexington, Kentucky, Greendale was a reform school with a military-style approach that would later evolve into the Blackburn Correctional Facility. William's stay at Greendale was brief, but it was during his stint there that he crossed paths with William Hubbard. Hubbard, who was also 16 years old, had been sentenced to 10 years for his involvement in a murder that occurred back in 1931. Here's an excerpt from an article about his case from the Louisville Courier-Journal. Manchester, Kentucky, April 6th. While 3 men and a woman were held in jail here today on a murder charge, authorities prepared to visit the remote Otter Creek section to search the ruins of a home in which the body of William Jones, 50 years old, is alleged to have been burned after being decapitated. The accused are William Hubbard, 21. By the way, he was actually 16. Frank Hubbard, 25. Bill Freeman, 42. And Miss Nellie Jones, 45, widow of Jones. They were brought here today after their arrest in the Mountain County. In the end, no evidence was ever discovered to confirm that they had killed Jones. The prevailing assumption is that their remains were consumed in the fire, leaving nothing behind. Although Colgate was making acquaintances, he had no intention of staying. He faked an injury and found his way to the infirmary. During the middle of the night, when the nurses were not paying attention, he ventured onto a balcony on the second floor and made a daring escape to the ground below. For the record, that's one successful escape. Fast forward to June 1933, and Colgate once again found himself having another run-in with law enforcement. He had been apprehended in suspicion of having robbed an older gentleman, Ernest Howard, and taking from him $4.95 and a watch. Following a struggle, Detectives Brodenbender and Jenkins of the Louisville Police Department took Colgate into custody. A crowd quickly assembled as the detectives escorted him to the police station. Along the way, William requested a drink of water. When they paused at a nearby water fountain, William suddenly produced a concealed firearm from beneath his clothing and opened fire at the detectives. Among the bystanders, his mother, Doshi, who was present in the crowd, is said to have pushed one of the detectives aside, preventing him from being hit. With a shout of, "Boy, I'm getting out of here," William made his escape across the street. The detectives responded by firing 4 shots in his direction, but he managed to evade capture. If you're counting, that's 2. This period in our history was marked by confrontations between law enforcement and criminals where bullets flew in the streets without much regard for innocent lives. It's a time that I personally find fascinating. Clyde Barrow was released from prison in February of 1932, and by June of 1933, he and Bonnie Parker were deeply embroiled in their infamous criminal careers across Texas and Oklahoma. John Dillinger, released from a Chicago prison just a month prior to William Colgate's arrest on May 20th, 1933, quickly launched his reign of terror across the upper Midwest, earning the title of Public Enemy Number One. Dillinger, Barrow, and Parker, along with Babyface Nelson and several members of the Barker Karpus gang, among other criminals, became the prime focus of J. Edgar Hoover's newly formed Federal Bureau of Investigation. Many ultimately ended up behind bars or falling to the guns of federal law enforcement. William Colgate, at age 17, wasn't destined to join their infamous ranks. But the search for him this time required over 2 hours and more than 20 officers. Eventually, he was discovered hiding in an alley. Colgate confessed to the planning of the robbery of Mr. Howard, citing dire financial straits, saying, "I need money. I don't have money for groceries. I need everything I can get." Colgate faced trial and received a 6-year prison sentence in October of 1933. It was during this time behind bars that he crossed paths with Elmer Davidson, who also had a captivating history of his own. Here is an excerpt from an article in the May 5, 1936 edition of the Lexington Herald-Leader. Officers found the youth Elmer Davidson, 18, hiding under a couch in a home into which he had crept while they investigated a theft in the neighborhood. He offered to lead the police to 2 others he said were to blame. He led them to the Ohio River and jumped in. The Henry C. Weiser, Jr., a yacht from Wilmington, Delaware, picked him up. Coast Guardsmen went after Davidson. He jumped back in the river, screaming defiance at the guards. They fished him out and handed him over to the police, who gave him restoratives and booked him on charges of grand larceny, storehouse breaking, and dwelling house breaking. A few minutes later, a reporter found Davidson in his cell, nearly dead, hanging from a noose he had contrived out of his shirt. He was cut down and revived. Shortly afterwards, he tried to hang himself with a blanket. A patrolman was then assigned to watch him. After being placed in a hospital for observation, he squeezed through window bars only 6 inches apart and leaped 12 feet from the roof to escape in his pajamas. He was caught about an hour later and eventually met up with Colgate in prison. Both of them had escaped from a hospital, which added an ironic twist to their story when they crossed paths in prison. Davidson and Colgate soon struck up a close friendship and made arrangements to reunite once they both were released. Colgate was granted parole on February 17, 1937, after serving approximately 3.5 years behind bars. His return to his old habits was swift. Less than 3 months later, on May 15, 1937, Colgate found himself in a dance hall at the Jefferson Cafe. It was there that an off-duty officer named Edward Burnett, who happened to be across the room, noticed Colgate had a firearm holstered to his side. Burnett approached him and inquired if he was an officer. In a flash, Colgate leaped to his feet and seized Burnett by the neck. A struggle ensued, during which both men ended up grappling for control of each other's guns. Interestingly, Burnett's gun accidentally discharged, resulting in Colgate sustaining an injury to his left hip and also injuring a bystander named Jesse Fry in the right hip. Colgate was arrested and indicted for malicious shooting and was placed under surveillance in the hospital. About a week later, while apparently no one was watching, he got out of bed and walked out the front door of the hospital. For the record, that's 3. Remarkably, he successfully steered clear of trouble for a span of almost 5 months. During this period, he reconnected with Elmer Davidson in Indiana, and together they embarked on a whirlwind journey. Colgate even started a memoir detailing their escapades. Their adventures took them as far north as Lafayette, Indiana, where they acquired a 1928 model Chevrolet for a mere $12. To put that in perspective, today that $12 would equate to roughly $250 in value. On October 25, 1937, they found themselves in Columbus, Indiana. As the sun dipped below the horizon, they parked their car discreetly behind a church, preparing to spend the night. Their presence did not go unnoticed, as a neighbor spotted the suspicious vehicle on 2 Mile House Road and promptly alerted the local sheriff, Robert Urbane. Accompanied by a couple of fellow officers, they embarked on an investigation. On their way, they swung by the county prosecutors, William Bowman, to bring him along for the ride, unknowingly setting the stage for an eventful journey. Upon arriving at the scene, they discovered Colgate and Davidson fast asleep in their car and initiated their questioning. It was soon decided that everyone should proceed to the police station to continue the interview. Bowman settled into the passenger seat of Davidson's car, while Colgate joined the officers in their vehicle. Davidson's Chevrolet, as Colgate described it, lacked functioning lights and struggled to run smoothly beyond 25 miles per hour. With only the moon's faint illumination, they cruised down the highway at approximately 25 miles per hour. Sheriff Urbane and Colgate were trailing behind in their vehicle when unexpectedly Davidson's door opened and Davidson came out the driver's side. He landed on his hands and knees, swiftly rose to his feet, and vanished into the darkness. In the passenger seat, Bowman found himself hurling down the highway at 25 miles per hour in total darkness without a driver at the helm. The car eventually veered off the road, careering through a ditch before coming to halt in a wheat field. Despite the officers' diligent efforts and an extensive search, Davidson successfully evaded capture, disappearing into the White River. Upon their eventual arrival at the police station, Colgate identified himself as William Messmore, age 21, hailing from Louisville, Kentucky. As William Messmore had a clean record and had not committed any offenses, he was released. And then this, on January 5th, 1938. At 1:30 a.m. Monday, Patrolman Reed and Scott encountered Colgate seated in a stolen car parked on Lexington Road. Reed, alighting from the police car, approached the parked motor and asked, "What's the trouble?" With that, the officer related, the man pressed the muzzle of a pistol against Reed's body. Reed scuffled with him and succeeded in knocking the pistol from his hand. The man then charged at Reed, butted him in the stomach, and fled, disappearing in some shrubbery. 4 hours later, acting on a tip, officers went to the rear of 739 Fier, second floor. They found Colgate eating breakfast with a woman and a child. At sight of the officers, the man climbed through the window, slid partway down the drain pipe, and dropped to the yard. I think we're starting to see a pattern here. And by the way, in case you're still counting, that's 4 and 5. Well, it's time for us to conclude today's episode. I hope you're enjoying our story, and if you are, please show your support by liking, following, and leaving a comment. Most importantly, do share our podcast with your friends. In episode 4, we'll continue delving into the life of William Messmore, and I must say, the count of his escapes is far from over. For those of you who believe you've already unraveled the mystery of what happened on Saltwell Hill, I'll advise against rushing to conclusions. We still have 5 more episodes brimming with revelations. If you do have a theory about what happened on Saltwell Hill, I'd love to hear it. Send me an email at what happened at saltwellhill.com. Put the word theory in the subject line, and I'll do my best to read all your stories and might even select a couple to share in the final episode. Stay tuned for the teaser of the next episode as we'll continue to uncover the truth about what happened on Saltwell Hill. Are you ready to take charge of your future and provide peace of mind for your loved ones? Look no further. Welcome to Rapid Answers Life Insurance, your trusted partner in safeguarding what matters most. At Rapid Answers Life Insurance, we're committed to helping you make the best decisions for your future. We pride ourselves on transparency, simplicity, and unparalleled customer service. With us, you're not just a policyholder, you're part of the Rapid Answers family. Your dreams are worth protecting, and we're here to make it easy. Rapid Answers Life Insurance, your pathway to a secure and worry-free tomorrow. Don't wait another moment to secure your loved one's future. Visit our website at www.rapidanswers.life to get your free, no-obligation quote. Experience the ease of securing your tomorrow with Rapid Answers Life Insurance. Again, that's www.rapidanswers.life. Hey, Roger sneaking back in to give you a little to think about for episode number 4. This was Valentine's Day, February 14th, 1949. Parolee William D. Messmore, 32, who harbored the family after its small home here burned earlier this winter, was arrested on a fugitive warrant from Indiana State Police. Louisville police said Messmore is charged with theft of a dog at English by Indiana State Police. They declined to comment on the charges. See you in episode 4.